What is Agent Orange? You can turn back now, or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Here are the facts. From 1962 to 1971, the United States deployed a little less than 76 million liters of so-called rainbow herbicides across Vietnam, largely during a project called Operation Ranch Hand. According to initial information, U.S. forces were hoping to defoliate the countryside, depriving the enemy of hiding places in the jungle. The most common of these herbicides was called Agent Orange. The military spread about 42 million liters of it throughout Vietnam. This wasn't the first use of herbicide in warfare. British forces used it in Malaysia during the 1950s, but it was the most widespread. Between 10 to 20% of Vietnam was exposed to the substances. The full consequences were not immediately apparent. According to people who'd been exposed, both Vietnamese citizens and US veterans, this isn't just a threat to plants. They allege that dioxin in Agent Orange and other toxic substances were responsible for everything from cancer to birth deformities, genetic diseases, and more. Here's where it gets crazy. They were and are correct. But in the beginning, these reports were either ignored, downplayed, or dismissed. Initially, the American public was misled about the strategy behind the use of herbicides. While the stated purpose was to defoliate the area, the underlying goal had always been the destruction of crops and compromise of food supplies. Vietnamese health professionals noted a disturbing rise in birth defects by the late 60s, and returning US veterans reported multiple illnesses. As time passed and these veterans had children, they came to believe that exposure to Agent Orange had also affected their children's health. As public pressure grew, Congress began to investigate the claims and veterans groups took legal action. Over decades, the debate continued. In 1990, victims of exposure alleged that the Reagan administration pressured the CDC to drop a study on Agent Orange. The CDC argued that it could not determine which veterans had actually been exposed. Over time, both the chemical companies that supplied Agent Orange and the government began taking steps to address these claims. However, this chapter of history is hardly over. In 2011, the US agreed to fund the decontamination of dioxin spots across Vietnam after years of arguing. At this point, estimates of the damage, from the number of people affected to the ecological effects, vary widely and remain a subject of intense debate. To some, this is only because it's difficult to track the levels of exposure, the causes of that exposure, and so on. To others, however, it's evidence that there's still something the United States doesn't want you to know about Agent Orange. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we investigate the Gulf War Syndrome.